Hello everybody, this is part 2 of my Federal Reserve video. I hope you enjoyed the first video. I apologize if I swore too much or used any derogatory language in which your children may be viewing, but it is important we understand all this. Now, we're coming to a point where eventually the government will own nothing. The people will own nothing. And you know, when I say the government will own nothing, I honestly mean our government. Not this shadow government owned by foreign bankers. I mean our legitimate government, the people that have good hearts that are in there. But as I was saying, we're coming to a point where we as a people will own nothing and the bankers will own everything. We're being enslaved by the financial institutions of the nation. We must understand this. We are becoming enslaved by the financial institutions of this once great nation. And to think all the way back in the 1700s, and I'm going to quote for all of you what Thomas Jefferson warned to every single American. He said, if the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their private banks to control the issue of their money, the banks and their corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of their property until their children will wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. And let's remember, everybody, this is a man saying this dating back to the 1700s. The 1700s. That's how intelligent this man was and how much common sense he held. Central banks is what's ruining our country. We don't need a central bank. We don't need 12 fucking people elected every 15 years without any congressional oversight to dictate interest rates, to dictate our money and how it's printed and how much is printed. What we need is our Congress delegated the power once more. Congress that's elected by our people to be in charge of our money, not a private corporation ran by Zionist Jews. Now, when I say Jews, I'm just saying that because that's what the Rothschilds are. They're sick, demented fucks. Now, it is conquest through the most gigantic fraud and swindle in the history of mankind. And to think that the key to their power and wealth is simply their legal right to create money out of nothing and to lend it out at interest. Now, this is very important to remember, everybody, and I'm going to repeat it. It is conquest through the most gigantic fraud and swindle in the history of mankind. And to think that the key to their power and wealth is simply their legal right to create money out of nothing and to lend it out as interest. If they had not been allowed to do that, they could have never gained secret control of the nation. And to put this in simplistic terms, imagine me, the host of this video you're watching now. Imagine if I, myself, had a monopoly on credit creation of the United States. Let's say I myself could print the money, regulate it, and give it out at interest rates which I ever found convenient. I would have complete total control of the country, and that is what we have now. Now let's go on to the Great Depression. It is predicted that a depression is to take place soon in the United States, as most of you probably know. You might be asking, does this have anything to do with the operation of the Federal Reserve? You bet it does. Let us go back into the 1930s, okay, everybody? Some of you probably experienced, if you're older, maybe my grandmother's age who's passed away, let's say you're in your 80s, now you may have experienced the Great Depression. During that time, America had skilled and willing workers, good farmland, a highly efficient transportation system, industries, you name it, all that was needed to form a rich nation. all except an adequate supply of money to carry on trade and commerce. Few people know this, and please understand this, I'm going to read it to you. Few people know that the banksters, aka the Federal Reserve, had purposely withheld $8 billion from going into circulation by refusing loans to the population, while at the same time they demanded payment on existing loans so that the money was rapidly taken out of circulation and not replaced. Remember that. Because of this control on the money, America was put into deep trouble. Jobs were waiting to be done, goods were available to be bought, but there was no money. Food was thrown into the ocean while people were starving. 25% of the workers were laid off, and the greedy bankers took possession, and boy, let me tell you, they took possession of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of farms, homes, and business properties. Believe it or not, some of the economic experts at that time were naive enough and blamed the moon. Yes, the economists of the Great Depression who were under Federal Reserve payroll actually were blaming the moon for bringing about all the economic hardship. Others blamed the politicians because they were too naive to comprehend this back then. Others even blamed the consumers for not wisely spending their money. But the truth is, the Depression was purposely brought on by the bankers through their artificial control of the money. Please remember this, and I'll repeat it once more. The Depression of the 1930s was purposely brought on by the bankers through their artificial control of the money. The same bankers who in the early 1930s had no loans for peacetime houses, food, and clothing, suddenly had unlimited billions of dollars to lend for the government for war purposes. And I'm going to repeat this once more because it's very equivalent to what's going on right now. The same bankers who in the early 1930s had no loans for peacetime houses, food, and clothing suddenly had unlimited billions of dollars to lend to the government for war purposes. The nation, which a few years earlier could hardly feed its own people, was now producing bombs to send free to its allies. Upsetting? Oh, it's upsetting. You bet it is. And to think it is all because of some private Zionist filth bankers who have infiltrated our government, who call themselves the Federal Reserve. They have the legal right to create and control the money to run the country as so they wish. So after reading you that, there's no way this country will ever progress in a positive manner until these foreign bankers and their monopoly on credit creation is abolished. Now I'm going to quote for you something President Woodrow Wilson said. President Woodrow Wilson had this to say about the Federal Reserve. Even though he did pass it in 1913, he did have moral regrets. A great industrial nation is controlled by its system of credit. Our system of credit is concentrated. The growth of the nation and all of our activities are in the hands of a few men. We have come to be one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in the world. No longer a government of free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of small groups of dominant men. Now, if that doesn't sum it up for you, how our country is today, I don't know how else to sum it up for you. I suggest you go buy your Pepsi and sit in front of your Star Trek or White House Down or Zero Dark 30 and go get your brain fill. Now, just before Woodrow Wilson died, it's reported to have stated to his friends that he had been deceived Woodrow Wilson felt deceived, everybody, and he said this: "I have betrayed my country." That's what he said days before his death. He was referring to the Federal Reserve Act passed during his presidency. Now, if this ain't corruption, I don't know what the hell it is. Moving on. Now, I'll make this short and I'll sum up this last page for you as simply as I can. We know that these foreign bankers, the hidden controllers of our country, they purposely instigate wars. They always are financing both sides of the same war. And you know why? They want to frighten us. They want to frighten the people into going billions and billions of dollars into debt for national defense. Now, when you're watching CNN sitting on your couch eating your Doritos, whenever you hear the word national defense, I want you to laugh because it's a joke. There's no country on this planet right now that could even contemplate on defeating us. It is a joke. They use national defense as an excuse to print more and more and more money, while I myself have to go look for dishwashing jobs. Now let's take in mind that this sick, demented, these foreign bankers, they're even financing communism. Back then, back in the day, they were even financing communism. Just like I was telling you, they always finance both sides of the war. And then they turn around and have foreign aid sent to stop the communism that they financed. This very well reminds me of the current situation which is taking place in Syria now. We're sending foreign aid to Al-Qaeda, but at the same time, they're talking about going over there and stopping all this war. Same shit, same thing, same agenda, just a different year. Now let's take in mind the tens of thousands of young people who are killed and the hundreds of thousands who are crippled and morally corrupted from war. They mean nothing to these foreign bankers, the war veterans. The war veterans are just simply pawns and cogs in a gigantic con game. In fact, it doesn't even matter who wins or loses the war, as long as all the countries involved are in debt to these bankers. As for instance, let's say that the United States today was in war with Russia. It wouldn't matter who won to the foreign bankers, because obviously both countries are enslaved under a Rothschild central banking system. The bankers purposely try to corrupt the people. And I'm going to repeat that for all of you because this is very important to understand. I got a fucking bug on my arm. Hold on. The bankers purposely try to corrupt the people so it is easier to control them, sweeping away anything that is honorable, such as morals, religion, family, love of country. They encourage drug use. They encourage alcohol. They encourage pornography, and they encourage crime. They deliberately prevent real cures for diseases, and they stir up social and racial unrest. Kind of reminds me of an MSNBC host, Al Sharpton. Just another stupid, take in mind I'm not racist, but Al Sharpton's just an overpaid fucking gorilla. Overpaid fucking gorilla, just spouting CIA-sponsored disinformation. Now, as I was telling you, our New World Order, they encourage drug use, they encourage alcohol, they encourage pornography, and they encourage crime. They deliberately prevent real cures for diseases, and they stir up social and racial unrest. And they work to degrade the educational system. If I ever had children, I don't know what I would do. Because it's so hard economically, I probably couldn't homeschool them because I would most likely be working. But on the other hand, it would kill me to send them to a public school that promotes masturbation at the age of 5 and homosexual studies. So I'm not sure what I would do. Many of our politicians have become agents of the bankers, as I have been reading to you, while our two political parties have become their servants, Republicans and Democrats. No matter who you elect in the high office, Rockefeller and his agents will be running the government behind the scenes. You can be sure of it, people. How else could something so diabolical as the Federal Reserve, something so destructive to the national interest of the people, be allowed to continue so long if our politicians haven't become agents of the bankers? So when you're in the bank, when you're in the library, and when you're in school, and you got some naive asshole coming up to you telling you your vote matters, look him in the eye and tell him, fuck you. Now I'll continue this video with a short little message and I'll end it. By now you must surely agree that the only real solution to solve our financial problems is to put pressure on the government to repeal the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 and to demand that Congress again be allowed to create and control the money of our nation. Issuing interest and debt-free United States notes as the legal currency is what should be the norm. And I'll repeat that. Issuing interest and debt-free United States notes as the legal currency should be the norm. And I'm going to quote for you something John F. Kennedy said just days before he was assassinated by our sick fucking CIA. With a reform in the money system, no private bankers would be able to rob the people. Government banks, under the control of the people's representatives, would issue and control all money and credit. A $60,000 loan made to build a house would require only $60,000 in repayment with a little service fee, not $255,000, $931 as it is now. Everyone who supplied materials and labor to build that house would get paid just as they are today, but the bankers would not get $195,931 in usury. And that, my friend, is a quote from John F. Kennedy, who was a threat to the Federal Reserve. And what happened to that president? They blew his head off. His brain was turned into mush. And they had a patsy kill him. And I'll finish this video with this. A debt-free America would mean that mothers would not have to work, but could remain home with their children. Juvenile delinquency would decrease rapidly. The elimination of the usury in debt would be equivalent to a 50% rise in the purchasing power of every worker. The bankers would no longer be able to steal billions of dollars from the people every year in interest. America would become the envy of the world, being prosperous and powerful beyond the wildest dream of its citizens. So I'm going to end this video by telling you the only solution for America to get back on pace, to get back to being the country that it was founded on, is to get rid of these filthy foreign bankers that have a complete monopoly on the credit creation of this nation, aka the Rothschilds, and all their sick, degenerative banks and corporations that act upon under them. Now, if you watch my video and you want to continue watching CNN, MSNBC, and all your shit on TV, go ahead. But hopefully this video will wake some people up and it'll get people looking. I suggest everybody who watches this video to visit the following websites: Infowars.com, INFOWARS.com, that's Infowars.com. Other sites such as HenryMakow.com, HenryMakow.com. And another site, I forget its name, it's called, USAHitman.com, that is USAHITMAN.com, and numerous others. I suggest any book written by Ron Paul, such as A Revolution and the Fed, and 50 Essential Liberties. If you have any questions, you can contact me at Facebook at facebook.com/virtualpirateboy, or you can reach me at corporateslaveboy@gmail.com. Thank you.